The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Beneath the Cowl podcast, Cosplay Alliance, our partners and affiliates. This episode may contain coarse language and sensitive subject matters. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to Beneath the Cowl. I am Ed Campbell, Snowhawk Cosplay, and I am this week's host. And the great thing is here on Cosplay Alliance and Beneath the Cowl, we have our rotating group of cosplay hosts, and I'm excited for it because not only do I get a great conversation, I get one-on-one with Noah, Freakish Workshop, and I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah,
so
me
welcome,
too.
Noah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've actually never watched Beneath the Cowl right from the beginning. I've always jumped in after, so I've never seen that intro before. It's pretty hardcore.
We see the warning. It's like there could be language. So hey, you never know, like sort of bombs might drop here. But first up, Noah, how are you doing? How's your week going?
I'm good. Week was all right. I have a little bit of a cough, so if my voice starts to go, I apologize, but it's a tiny little cough, a little tickle in the back of the throat. So kind of a bummer end to the week, but at the same time, I've got a lot planned cosplay wise. So staying home and staying in my basement it's working. It's going to work for me. So yeah,
cos plans. Well,
yes, sir.
Touch on that later because I do want to know what you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
But first things first, so you are an amazing crafts person when it comes down to cosplay. And not only that, you have your 2 YouTube pages or YouTube channels that you got going on.
Mm-hmm.
One is So You Want to Be a Cosplayer.
Yep, that's the first one.
And your other one is?
So my other one that's just kind of started is called Foam Crafting 101. And I take people, it's very surface level, so nothing specific, nothing too deep, but I do take some time on topics such as templating, which is what I would call my specialty. And I just walk you through tools and materials. I'm doing the thing that I do in my intro, the tools and materials to painting and finishing a foam project and kind of everything in between, as well as kind of talking about tips and tricks on how I foam craft. So that's that series, which is kind of, both of them are ongoing, which is really exciting. And so far it's been received really, really well. So I appreciate it. If you've seen them, I appreciate all the feedback. If you haven't seen them, what are you doing? No, I'm totally kidding.
Keep watching this.
Keep watching
jump
this.
out of this feed to go over and watch back issues. They are on Noah's YouTube channel, so
yes.
You can watch them later. Stick with us now because we are live. But no, that's exciting. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But since your show is called So You Want to Be a Cosplayer,
yes, how
did you get into cosplay,
Noah? It's a really cool story because every time I tell it, I get a smile on my face. So it's really cool. I was always into making short films. In fact, for the longest time, for most of my life, I wanted to be a director, a movie director. And so I was always into making short films with my friends and everything. However, hindsight, I'm looking back and I focus most of my energy on costumes and props. And at one point, my dad comes in to my room and he looks around and I'm building something on the floor. And he goes, can you come out of your room for a second? And I was like, sure. And he closes the door. He goes, okay, I'm going to open the door. We're going to walk in the room. Pretend this is not your room. Pretend this is someone else's room. And I want you to think about what they enjoyed doing. He opens the door, I look around, and my room is an absolute mess. And I think this is like some life lesson. And so I go, this person should clean his room. And my dad goes, well, yes, but like, what is he like doing? And looking around, and there's just props and helmets and masks and materials everywhere. What would now be considered a cosplay hobby kind of crafting zone. And so I said, this person likes making costumes. And he goes, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but just sit with what you just kind of read into. He then connected me with a friend who does cosplay, or like a coworker at the time who did cosplay. Her name is Jessica Cross, and she was a foam crafter and kind of went from there. Got connected with Evil Ted and all, like, a bunch of the other bigger names at the time. I think it was around 2018 or so. And then ever since then, it's been a passion for sure. So that's how I got started.
What? Just to kind of circle back to what your dad said, that is kind of prolific.
Yeah.
Like if you got too much going on, you don't know what you want to do, don't know what to focus on, step away from the situation, come in. What's the first thing you look at? That is actually great advice. I really like what your dad said there.
I know, right? Sorry, my computer just decided to fall asleep on me, so I can't see you. I have to log into my laptop again. There we go. Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
There we go. Hey,
sorry,
there we go.
There we go.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, no, he's a creative guy. Like everything I have creatively has come from him. He helped me learn how to draw. I'm a massive drawer. People who've been following me for a while know that I usually do concept art of cosplays that I do. Just because I don't usually do, and I'm sorry if you're watching this. Someone in the So You Want to Be a Cosplayer series talked about a 1-for-1 cosplay in the kind of the statue 1-for-1 scale. And so I've been using that term ever since, but I don't do 1-for-1 cosplays. I don't do screen accurate cosplays. Yeah. I've done one or two. Like I did the Praetorian and I did Ares from Blood of Zeus. But other than that, I've always taken a character and I've done my own spin on it. And because it's from his drawings and drawing superheroes and being able to move things around on a page and draw and see what looks good and what maybe doesn't work aesthetically, that I got into cosplay and was able to kind of carve the path that way. So, yeah.
Well, when you look at your cosplays, so if you're not familiar with Noah's work, I think one of your most famous cosplays is your Green Goblin.
This guy.
There he is, right there.
Very dusty, but this guy.
Yeah, and even on the promo for this episode, that's the cosplay that we chose. But like if you did a screen accurate, say 2002 Willem Dafoe Green Goblin, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
But then you sort of blend in to everyone else being screen accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes down to my cosplays, like I'm not 100% screen accurate because if something I'm building, I'm not really that good. So, if my flaws or anything that I really can't do well, I do my own spin. I do it the best of my abilities.
Exactly.
But also, when you do something that doesn't look like it came off the screen, then you stand out. Then you are different. You're still that character. You're still paying homage to it.
Yes.
But if a photo comes up, it's not like however many other cosplayers look the exact same way of what you're doing. So.
And that's actually something that, like, in Green Goblin, I think I was the most aware of than any other cosplay that I've done. Goblin is not a common character for cosplay. He's just not. Most people don't cosplay him because most people think of the Willem Dafoe one and they think about all the scales and the leather and they go, no, I'm not going to do that. Very recently, because of, I think, him being brought into the MCU with the Spider-Man movie, that he's definitely become more popular, which is super cool to see. But I knew going into it, I had to put my own spin and I had to stand apart because the Goblin cosplays that are out there, the few that are tremendous. They are jaw-dropping. And so I knew I had to set myself apart. Otherwise, I just kind of do my own thing, and I don't really care if someone likes it or not. And this one just turned out to be that, like, I have there's been a few cosplays where I've seen like jumps in followers or jumps in progression or being welcomed into a cosplay community in particular. One of them is the Praetorian that you've seen in the thumbnail for this episode, or at least one of the thumbnails. And the Goblin was another one. I was not expecting to be received that well, especially by the Spider-Man community, like the Spider-Man cosplay community. It was such a cool community to be able to break into. So, it's cool.
It's funny when it comes down to Spider-Mans because there's 100 million Spider-Mans.
There are, yeah,
but there's not a lot of because it's easy to be a Spider-Man. Like,
it is.
You could just buy Zentai, put it on, boom, you're Spider-Man. There are not a lot of cosplayers who actually do Spidey villains.
No, no, and not Goblin in particular. Like, there's definitely some easier ones. Like, I've seen a bunch of Mysterios. Shocker is another good one. Venom in particular. You always get like Venomized
Yeah,
Miles
yeah.
Morales, Venomized Gwen Stacy, and stuff like that, which is super cool. Obviously, like one of my kind of the bigger thing on my Etsy shop is the Venomized material stuff, which is the Carnage wrap here. So obviously, like I'm not against that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right. The villains don't get as much love.
I do a Homecoming Vulture, sort of my own take on them, like the Michael Keaton Vulture.
Yeah.
And the first time I took it to Toronto Comic Con, it was funny how many spider people stopped me because really they got nobody to fight against. They got nobody to take pictures with because there's not a lot of villains out there.
No.
Now for you, how long have you been cosplaying?
So yeah, I've been cosplay. I'll say that I started cosplaying as in consciously using that term to describe what I'm doing since 2018. So about 6 years or so. But I mean, like I said, I've been like Halloween. I would put effort into costumes. Movies, I was making costumes for a while. Halloween is the dress up bit has always been a big part for my family because again, my dad loves to do that. And so as we were kids, he was always paper meshing like a Tusken Raider helmet, or he did a Boba Fett helmet. And so costumes and costume design and making costumes has always been sort of a thing in the family. And so I've been doing it for however many years, but cosplaying, consciously cosplaying, costume playing, since 2018.
There we go. And went before we went live, and everyone else could join us, and we have free chats. So you are originally based out of Winnipeg, moved to Alberta when you were a kid, and outside the Calgary area, which this weekend Calgary Expo was on.
Major FOMO from that, I'll be honest. Major FOMO. I got a bunch of friends out there having a fun time, and I am not able to make it. So maybe next year.
Did you go to Fan Expo here in Toronto last year?
Yeah. So that's where I wore my Goblin, my updated Goblin 0.2, I guess technically. I upgraded a few things from the original kind of photo shoot that I did. That was my original premiere for the Goblin was in ThunderCon in Thunder Bay. And then there was just a few things I wanted to upgrade, so I upgraded that for Fan Expo.
Now, for people who haven't been to Calgary, I've been there a couple times, Fan Expo a bunch of times. I put Calgary Expo as one of the best Comic-Cons in Canada. It's fantastic.
I would agree. Yeah, it's really, really good. And like we were discussing before, like Toronto Fan Expo is fantastic because you do have this massive space and you have a lot of thoroughfares and it's just massive. What Fan Expo doesn't have, or maybe I just didn't experience it. Maybe I should pitch it that way. Maybe I didn't experience it. It doesn't have the outside experience that Calgary Fan Expo had, at least pre-pandemic. Because in the beginning, before the pandemic, you had one big building where you had like Artist Alley stuff and a lot of the guests kind of signature stuff. And then you had the rest, which is where you had all like the merchants and everything like that. And then you had in between the buildings, you had this big open space. And there was usually like a Viking village. I'm not sure if you remember that. There was like guys that were doing like Viking role play, and they had the medieval kind of faux fighting in a ring stuff going on. But then all the cosplayers would just mingle in the middle. Yeah. And so you had like a third space that was purely for socializing. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's like so for those who aren't familiar, Calgary Expo happens at the Stampede Grounds. Yes. And the Stampede Grounds is a great facility. I love the Stampede Grounds.
I agree, yeah.
When you have an area that can see like over 1 million people over 2 weeks, like, okay, it is set up perfectly.
Oh, and parking there. Like, yeah, you can park so many people at the grounds. It's perfect.
And the nice thing is you can come and go between all the buildings. Now, last year when I went to Calgary Expo, there was construction. So like a lot of that green space where people would hang out was all like cut off because I don't know what they're upgrades to the Stampede grounds, and people were like walking in from the LRT, which is the train system in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
So you only have a little walkway to go down, but also with that open space, like Stampede grounds have a building dedicated to food, but then food trucks outside. And
I remember the food trucks. Yeah.
No, it's just Calgary Expo is one of my favorite cons in Canada. It's done so, like, the facility itself, I think, is as much of a draw. Like, even a friend of mine, and I don't know if you've met him, Kid Remington.
Yeah,
does and Kid organizes a big shoot of all the cosplayers on the steps of the Saddle Dome, and that's just cool. Like when you show up and there's like a couple hundred cosplayers sitting there to have a photo taken. Like, no, that's a lot of fun. What other cons have you done in Canada?
So I did, excuse me, I did Fan Expo. I did that for a few years. My last one, I don't even remember what year, but I wore my Praetorian for that one. I've done Edmonton Expo. There was a small con that I actually guest spotted at once or twice called Foothills Comic Con. I don't think they made it past the third year, which is unfortunate. But I did that. I did ThunderCon in Thunder Bay, great small con. Again, very actually set up very similar to Calgary. They had kind of a parking lot in between the two buildings with like the faux medieval fighter stuff going on, which was really cool. It kind of felt pretty familiar. And then I've done Fan Expo, and I've done London. London was where I wore my Mordred, this guy, for the first time at London. And this year I'm planning on doing, several more in Ontario. So I've missed out on a few, unfortunately, just due to work and all that kind of stuff. But I've got a list, and Fan Expo is going to be big this year for me. So, yeah, I'm excited for Fan Expo.
Why is it going to be big?
I love teasing it because I'll be honest, I'm not used to teasing cosplays or like hiding stuff from cosplays. Goblin was the first time I actually ever like withheld a lot of content from a cosplay for the pub, like for my followers. And this one in particular is another one of those. I can say that I'm sticking in the Marvel universe, which is again new for me. I did Punisher once, but Goblin was really my first big stab at Marvel cosplays. I usually stuck to DC stuff. It just molds well with my art style and what I kind of how I see my costume designs coming through. But so this one's gonna be big, and I'm very, very excited for it. So hoping I make a big splash.
How long is this project? Like, how long has it been for this project to work?
So I've been planning this for well over a year. I've only really started working on it since November, I would say. And that's because there was one key element that I didn't know if I could even manufacture or if I could even use due to it's just really, really weird. It's essentially a kind of stilt. I'll say that. And I've never used them before. They're very awkward. And so I didn't even know if I was going to build them, and then could I even walk in them? And so it took a long time for me to actually build and manufacture and test and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still not 100% done on all the tweaking, but it's to the point where I go, okay, no, this part, the part that everything else hinges on, that's done and it's doable. So now it's actually like I'm going to the gym and doing specific workouts to like build my leg muscles so that I can be in this thing. Everything else is fine. The foam crafting is the biggest foam crafting project I have ever taken on. Ever. Yep. I'm doing electronics for the first time. I'm doing like extension of arms and limbs for the first time. And that in my mind, I'm like, I can do that. That's easy. It's this one part of it. And so I hope it pays off. I think it's going to pay off. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
I'm definitely excited to see that. And hopefully we can do some live stuff at Fan Expo with Cowl, maybe be able to show everyone what you're working on.
Absolutely. I am planning on revealing it soon. I have like a trailer in mind. I've been trying to do some trailers for cosplays. Tris Rex, I'm not sure if you follow him, but he does a lot of good, like, oh my goodness, you don't follow Tris Rex?
No.
Oh, you got to follow him. He's fantastic. He does a bunch of like xenomorph alien stuff, but it's like 15 feet high. Monster cosplayer. He's great. But he does a lot of like video content with his stuff. He does like cool trailers, and he's really inspired me. Both in making big cosplays, which I want to do more of now. I want to do really like kind of large, tall cosplays. But also just making more video content for stuff. And so I have a trailer in mind. I've written the script. I just got to figure out when I'm going to do it, and I need to finish a part of the cosplay to tease it. So that should be coming out soon-ish, probably in the next month or so. So yeah, but it'll be good.
Oh, nice. Well, when it comes down to cosplay, so what is your favorite medium when you're crafting and building?
Yeah, so I'm kind of what's known as a foam crafter or a foam smith. So I use EVA foam. Like 90% of the stuff I do is EVA foam, or it's EVA foam is backed onto something. So like my Mordred cosplay, there's actually real leather on the outside, but I've never used leather before, and I wanted it to look a little thicker, so I actually backed it with foam and then glued it together. And then I used leather twine to kind of sew it together to make it look like I've sewn the pieces together, when really it's actually just glued. I'm just building like a foam body armor and wrapping it in leather. And that turned out really, really well. But everything I do is foam. Or foam adjacent is another, I guess, is another way of looking at it. So yeah, that's my main medium.
Have you got into anything other materials like Worbla or 3D printing, or you're comfortable with foam and that's what you want to work with?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I started cosplay at the height of like the EVA Worbla competition, like the rivalry of that, where it's like only good cosplayers use EVA, only good cosplayers use Worbla. I never touched Worbla. It seemed to me less forgiving than EVA, and it was harder to get, is really what it came down to. Also, the first cosplay people I really followed were all foam smiths. So Evil Ted is a great example. He was one of the first people I ever followed on the cosplay Instagram world. And so it's just the material that I know. I would say I know it quite well. I don't use the highest grade of material, but I definitely know EVA quite well. Oh, hi. Sorry, my dog just. Let's see if I can. Hello. Hi.
Oh, here's a puppy.
So yeah, and I try and incorporate it into everything. 3D printing, I've done tiny little things with, mostly detail work. Yep. But because I don't have a 3D printer, and then I moved away from the guy who I knew had a 3D printer, I haven't used it since, really. So yeah.
The one thing I find with cosplayers is once you find a material that you're comfortable with, that's what you work with. Like,
I agree. Yeah.
For the Aquaman premiere, I kind of stepped out of my comfort zone and did foam. It's the very first foam project I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because I was making the Orm's body armor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the time I was done, I was like, okay, I did it. Now I can buy the files for the armor. They weren't available before we went to the premiere. But it was like, okay, I did it. It was my first foam project. It looks good from far, but far from good. But I'm much more comfortable when it comes down to 3D printing now, because before I used to like upcycle stuff. I'd make stuff out of garbage, and that's sort of where I was comfortable with. I'd find scraps of plastic or old tools or parts. Actually, I'll just show you here.
Yeah, yeah.
As I get stuck trying to get it off my shelf.
Of course.
This is one of the very first projects I ever made, which was my first Star-Lord helmet, and it was made out of an Iron Man mask and like just it's tubing, and it's
honestly it's seamless. I didn't see Iron Man until you said it's made out of Iron Man, and I went, "Oh my goodness, it's a War Machine helmet."
Yep,
could have fooled me. could have fooled me.
But in 2014, this was top. Like,
yeah,
this was a big deal in cosplay in 2014. This helmet was actually featured on Marvel Costoberfest.
Really?
I submitted a photo of me as Star-Lord wearing that helmet, and I got published on the Marvel website.
That's
so cool. Now I would never be seen in public wearing this, but it's still in my armory as because I never can throw it out.
No. Yeah, I have an old foam helmet that I kind of went all out on at the time.
Yeah.
And I went, this is my minimum. Like from this point on, I will never make anything that's like crappier than this. And I still have it. Excuse me. You got to keep those things. You got to keep the mementos around, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like that's why I figured I'm never going to throw it out because I did make it. I was proud of it at the time. I just I'll never wear it again. But it just sits on my shelf here in my office and part of my armory. But no, definitely I find that once a cosplayer finds something that they're comfortable with, that they like, that they can be consistent, and they know what quality and they know what the feel is and what it's going to do and all the little nuances, that's the product that they're going to stay with. So obviously with foam, that's your forte.
It is. Yeah. I think it also has to do with templating, honestly. One of the videos in the Foam Crafting 101 series, I talk about why you should template. If you're interested in templating, why should you be interested in it? And in my mind, it has to do with just technical knowledge. And because I templated from the beginning, because again, I started with like Evil Ted, and he templates everything. And so to me, it was just like what you do with foam is you template. And because of that, I've been able to, I don't have it because I just have to get rid of it. I have minimum space, but I built essentially a dead shot, like gauntlet blaster. And I did it I planned it entirely, like just in my head, all the shapes and how to do it. And it pretty much worked. I had to do a few things different. But it's that technical knowledge. I've worked with foam for so long, and then I've worked with templating. So I know what curves look good, and I know what angles are going to look like and all that kind of stuff. I just know foam because I've just been using it. And then the templating in particular helps me with that blueprint, breaking down to shapes and sizes and being able to twist those around in my head. I have that, I know not everyone does, but the ability to kind of 3D scan something and kind of rotate it in my head. And templating has allowed me to do that with foam. So I'm not going anywhere anytime soon without foam.
Now, speaking about templates, not only do you have like multiple YouTube channels that you talk about all this, you also have an Etsy page.
I do. Yeah, I have a small Etsy page. Just a few templates on there, you know.
But templating is one of the toughest things if you're a new cosplayer trying to figure it out. So
it is, yeah.
Course for people, if they're interested, that they could hit up your Etsy page and maybe buy a template from you. What are some of the templates you have on your Etsy page?
So yeah, I've got some really cool ones. I have very basic ones. So I've got basic shoulders. I've got bicep armor, gauntlets, two different kinds of gauntlets, like a medieval looking one and then like what I call a superhero one. I have pouches, which is probably my number one seller. 3 different sizes of pouches, like a medium, a smaller one, kind of like a flashlight looking pouch. And then I have got like a bigger one that's kind of meant to look like a medic pack, but you can actually, I made sure that you can fit like a wallet and a phone in it.
Hey, X-Men 97 is huge.
Hey,
if you want the cosplay, you got to get the pouches. You
got to get the pouches. Or Cable, right? With Deadpool 2, you got to get the pouches with Cable.
All the pouches.
So I've got a bunch of basic ones like that, but then I also have complicated ones, such as this guy, which I have yet to paint. So these are actually, you can buy them in a bundle, but they're 2 different templates, the helmet and then the quad night vision goggles. And I'm planning on expanding this range, but using the helmet as the base. For example, if you guys were at if anyone was at Toronto Comic Con and they went to go see the Geeks & Co booth, I donated for a raffle this Neo Samurai. So I actually took the tactical helmet and I added like some neck scales, I added some ear protection, and I added like a front crest to make it look like kind of a modern / sci-fi cyberpunk samurai helmet. That is also available. So I've got basic patterns and then I've got really niche patterns. You can actually you can make the goblin face. I don't know how I built this because it was like a last minute thing that was like really jimmied together, the purple parts. But the face you can actually buy on my Etsy. Minus the lenses, those are just safety glasses. But so I've got really niche ones and I've got some basic ones. There's really kind of something for someone there.
Yeah. Now that tactical helmet that you have, the quad, just the clips on the side, like to mount the accessories, are those pre-made or that's all foam as well?
That's all foam. Yeah. So
wow. Okay, so to me, that just looked like you had just like bought it at Army Surplus or something like that.
Oh wow, thank you.
The helmet. Yeah.
No, yeah. So this actually originated from, I was gonna work on like a I love, I don't remember his name, but the actor who plays Baron Zemo in the MCU. Perfect for the role. But they've wasted that character, especially when you look at some of the concept art. And so I went and actually made like a Baron Zemo using a superhero template that you can buy, a Baron Zemo helmet, and I wanted him to look like a tactical Marine. And so I added the side mounts, I added the front mount to then the purple kind of scarred classic look of Zemo. So I went back afterwards. I had to get rid of the helmet for just space, and I created this shape out of it. And then I figured the side rails out, and then everything else that I build is then using these front mount and the side rails to add onto it. So I'm working on the quad goggles are out. Not the moving hinge is actually just like a headlamp hinge. The one you buy in the template, it's fixed. But that's because you actually can't see anything out of these. So I don't want someone to like walk around with it. I'm working on just the two. I'm working on a single. I'm working on like the Splinter Cell 3. I'm working on ear kind of earmuffs headphones that you can put on there. Laser mounts or like camera mounts. My goal is to kit this thing out as much as possible. Now that I have the helmet as the foundation, I can really just kind of build off of it, which is really, really fun. So,
hold on. Which arm is it? That one. Because I'm a G.I. Joe.
There we go. Yeah.
So anything cosplay tactical wise, like I get excited for. And like I have tactical helmets that I buy at Army Surplus. And that's why I was like, as soon as you showed it, that looks like tactical and real. So,
well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I do have a bunch of other tactical stuff, which is really fun. I just did a flashbang grenade, which I'm pretty proud of. I've got like the M4/M16 kind of magazine look, and pistol magazines for patterns as well, because even Nerf magazines I find can get really finicky when it comes to security at cons. And so I wanted to make something that looked good, or at least I wanted to make something that for other people that looked good, but then were con safe. And so I have those magazines, and you can paint them to look like there's a round in them, but they're pretty con safe. I've been to a few cons with them, and they've passed the security checks. So, yeah, if you're looking into Call of Duty cosplays or G.I. Joe cosplays, check out my Etsy page because there's a good chunk there.
Well, that's a good thing to check out. I also leaned heavily towards Walmart and just buying the Action Force. You usually pick up a machine gun for $15 or $20, painted black.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. I actually have one just over there, and I have it like desert camoed, and yeah, fantastic props. Fantastic props.
I picked up one, and then I found the 3D print file for the angled foregrip. And
no way.
So when I put the angled foregrip on, I'm like, I just made this thing look so much better. And like the funny thing is I just grabbed the file, straight 3D printed it, painted black, and it slid right on the front rail.
Perfect.
On Action Force gun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so are these things like almost pretty much tactical, like realistic size?
Well, I think the best part about that range is that they all come with silencers that screw on that are orange. So you can take off the orange tip, spray paint it all black, and then just clip on like a silencer, clip on the orange tip, and now you're like con safe, which is really cool. Or you can glue it on or anything like that. But which is a really cool feature.
What I like to do is paint the silencer black.
Yeah.
Keep the end of the gun orange, and then I'll put the silencer on, so at least it has this orange band.
Ah, perfect. Yeah.
So then if you're doing a photo, you can hold the gun up, and then it still looks black. But if you have the gun down, then people can see it as it does have an orange tip on it somewhere. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's such a cool range. They went away for a while, which was unfortunate. I mean, it makes sense. There was a shooting in the U.S. when they kind of disappeared. But they're coming back now, not as wide of a range, but I definitely grabbed like the vectors that they have. They have like the tactical vectors. I grabbed those. And then I have the M4. I kept an M4 around. But yeah, no, it's such a cool range.
I have multiple bins just filled with toy.
Yeah, I have a hockey bag, which is like way sketchier.
Yeah, I have rolling Tuppermade bins and
yeah.
Don't look like you're gonna wind up in a watch list somewhere showing up with a
Oh my goodness, yeah. Oh man. I did a Red Hood cosplay a while back, and it's Red Hood. I want guns and stuff. So I actually called the local police department, and I was like, just so you know, I'm gonna be here during this time. If you want to come say hi, please do, but I'm just letting you know. And they were like, okay, thanks. But I was like, no, but seriously, like, they looks pretty good. So,
there was a story going around years ago of TTC train getting stopped over a Halo cosplayer.
Oh, I heard about that, or Star Wars too. I've seen Star Wars, which is kind of over the top, but yeah. No, yeah, it's pretty cool. What kind of I actually have a list of stuff. I have a list of 3D print files of like, okay, side rail small, side rail medium, side rail long. There was a while there I actually wanted to make foam templates of just like modern tactical guns. I like the M60 or the M4, and I wanted to make foam versions of them. Never did. I just didn't have the time. But I did the magazines, and I think the magazines are usually like at cons, if you're not allowed to have a gun, that's fair. But the magazines can look really cool, especially like raccoons, like a Resident Evil stuff. And you want to have the magazines up front, or G.I. Joe. Sometimes like the lack of a gun doesn't take away from a cosplay, but the lack of a magazine sometimes does. So I'm pretty happy with the templates so far. So yeah.
There we go. Now we already touched on your one YouTube channel, but let's get into them totally. So you have your YouTube page, your YouTube channel now called So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. What was the inspiration to get into visual podcasting?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, coming into Southern Ontario and getting to know everyone here, the Geeks and Co guys, Beneath the Cowl, Cosplay Alliance, just seeing all that really kind of sparked it. But realistically, the want to do something originated when I was doing templating, and there's one channel in particular, I won't mention them by name, but they did tutorials online, and their tutorials would leave out steps. It obviously leave out steps. And so when you're following along, you're going, do this and then do this. And I go, well, what's in between? Because you just did something. I can see you did something. And so I kind of wanted to make like a dismantling series originally of like, I'm going to follow someone's instructions word for word. And I'm going to show you what the result is, which is not what they told you was going to happen. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to fill in all the gaps that they forgot. I thought that was kind of petty. And so I didn't do that for the longest time. But eventually, it was Spider-Man Homecoming. And it's the detention video with Captain America. He swings the chair around and he goes, "So you're in detention." And so if you've watched the intros to my videos, I have a chair. It's flipped backwards. I come and I sit down and go, "So you want to be a cosplayer?" So that was the original. Like I had that in my head to kind of start it off. And really the point of the series is to answer that question. And someone kind of going like, "I think I want to get into cosplay." And a cosplayer going, "Okay, so you want to be a cosplayer?" Well, let's give you a jumping off point. I started in 2018, and I'm very thankful that I had my dad had a coworker who was into it, who was willing to be bombarded with messages. And I didn't know, I knew there was cosplay before because I'd been to Comic-Con and I'd seen people in cosplay before. But it was really, I had no idea how to maneuver that world. And so I wanted to give someone who is either a brand new cosplayer, like just getting into it, or is just thinking about it, a resource where they can look into the specifics of cosplay. So if you guys have seen the channel, if not, I really appreciate it if you did, but I start very broad. I start off what is cosplay. I talk about the genres of cosplayer, the kind of personalities you're going to find, and then I go smaller. I talk about the different kinds of cosplayers you're going to meet, foam smith, cosplay, fabricator, which is what I'd kind of throw you into, which is the 3D printing, cast making, that kind of thing, which is relatively new to the cosplay world, which is really cool to be able to include them in it. I just give some labels, and not, I don't go, you can only be one of these things. I usually say that like one cosplayer is usually like 2 or 3, or sometimes all of them all together. So, and then I start to narrow it down, which is where we're at now, which is I'm interviewing specific people who specialize in one form of cosplay. This week, I interviewed Rob the Bad Guy and JS from Geeks & Co. about 3D printing and how to get into it, how to start implementing 3D printing into your cosplays, or just if you wanted to start, you know, like you always see on TikTok or Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook, the Iron Man suits. Right. Well, how do you start that? How do you even begin to move in that direction? Because I can guarantee you're not getting that in your first try.
That
as you probably know, right?
Those huge, back here, I have RoboCop that I've been working on for. Plan was RoboCop is going to be 1.5 years, 2 years, and then they announced Peter Weller's coming to Niagara Falls Comic Con. Yeah, and then it's like, can I do RoboCop in 3 months? No, it's impossible. So I have the helmet printed, and I'm just going to go up to Peter Weller and say, "Please sign this." And like 10 years from now, when I have the suit done, I'll show you the rest.
That's great. That's so good. No, but yeah, it's to give someone a jumping off point. Here's some things that I learned. Some mistakes I made that you don't have to make if you don't want to. And then specializing. So everything from foam crafting to buying cosplays to I had Canadian Comic Cutie on about content creation, because that's such a big part of the cosplay community now. It is by no means this is how you have to cosplay if you're this kind of cosplayer. It's more of just here's some tips and tricks on how to get started. And that's it. That's the series. So far, it's been received really well, which I really appreciate. It's been really, really great seeing everyone's talking about that and everything. And so it's not done. I have a few more episodes in mind. I want to talk about competitions. I want to talk about makeup and body paint and that kind of thing. So I have a few more episodes. It is a finite series. I knew that going into it. It's not an ongoing thing. However, I will say this. Being on YouTube and doing that stuff and being on podcasts and talking about it and just being part of this podcast world that's in Southern Ontario, which is really cool to be a part of. I definitely want to start doing something on a regular basis. And so I'm going to start something called Freakish Radio, which is, I don't know if it's going to be a weekly thing or a bi-weekly thing, but it's just going to be a small little kind of ranting discussion topic. I might bring some guests on, but I've definitely gotten the itch of doing kind of discussion podcast content, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, that's So You Want to Be a Cosplayer. If that sounds interesting to you, or you know someone who would be interested in that, or have been kind of poking around the idea of cosplay, but they don't really know where to get started, that this series, and it's a playlist on my So I only have the one channel, Freakish Workshop, but it's a playlist on my YouTube channel. That playlist is for that person. So if you know someone, go ahead and share it. And I hope it helps. I'm pretty proud of it. And the guests that I've had on are absolutely phenomenal. So it's definitely worth a watch.
So when you started the show, did you know it was only going to be a limited run?
I did. I knew that there was only a certain amount of topics, and maybe I'll add topics going forward. But because I wanted to do very surface level, I wanted beginner stuff. I did not want to jump into specifics. I talked to Myers Corp Cosplay about Convention 101. That was my first interview. And it was like, your first day at con, what to do, what not to do, find the bathrooms. Like it has nothing to do about, okay, make sure you're scheduling your competition here, and then you can go talk to the celebrities. It's like, find where the bathroom is. Find if there's a restaurant nearby that you like. Find parking. It's surface level. And so because it's surface level, it's going to be a finite series. Unless someone brings up, hey, could you talk about this topic? Absolutely. I'll absolutely bring someone on if I'm not knowledgeable enough on it to produce a video. But ultimately, yeah, I knew it was going to be, I wrote it all down and I went, okay, this is about 13, 14 episodes. And they're hour long. So it does take a good chunk of like sitting down and like, okay, you're crafting or you're eating dinner or something like that, which is where Foam Crafting 101 comes in, where it's smaller content, sub 10 minutes. I try and keep it around 5. Very easy to watch, very easy to just kind of scroll past and kind of do, what do they call it? The second screen, where you're doing something and you've got your phone out.
Yep.
And that's where Foam Crafting 101 breaks in, where Foam Crafting 101 is my specialty. I've been doing it for however many years. I won't say I'm a master at it. As my intro says, I say I'm not a master at cosplay, but what I do know, I offer to you. And so that's where the smaller, easier to watch, shareable content, but I'm diving in super specific about certain aspects, tools, like fundamental tools, just thinking about what materials to use, where on a cosplay or a prop. I have a whole episode just on that.
Actually, just speaking about materials, where do you like buying your stuff?
Okay, so that's a great question. A good chunk of it is dollar store. It's actually Dollarama here in Canada. I'm not paid by them I'm not paid by anybody to say anything. I'm not that popular yet. So yeah, I get foam from the dollar store. I recently found an Amazon link that allows you to buy pretty decent density cosplay. I don't do tons of like high density and then low density stuff. I just kind of find one density and I try and stick to it. So this one link allows you to buy either white or black and in multiple thicknesses. And I just kind of order from there. Otherwise, in a pinch, I'll just go to Michael's, and they have 1 and 5 millimeter foam. And that's what I use. Foam boards.
I find that Michael's recently, they really changed. Like, they used to have the Warbler section there. And
yeah.
And like, I walked in one day and it was like, the big roll of Warbler was on 50% clearance. And I'm like,
yeah,
you're getting rid of all the Warbler. So I'm like, oh, I always need some. So I bought it.
Yeah. They're kind of getting rid of the cosplay section. And I'll be honest, I actually never shopped at a Michael's who had the cosplay section. So I never bought it. I just go to the basic craft section where they have like poster board and stuff, and I just buy it from there. But again, so yeah, I buy the rolls now on an Amazon link, which I think I've shared to the YouTube on materials. There's like a YouTube link I should have in the description for it. But yeah, and then you can buy 8 millimeter or 7 millimeter at the dollar store. That stuff, unfortunately, is really kind of low density. So sometimes you do have to see, and there might be some potholes in it, and you have to kind of be careful and cut around them. Foam core, poster board, I'll buy from there. So really, yeah, dollar store. Paint, spray paint stuff I get from Home Depot. So I cosplay really, really cheaply. And on Foam Crafting 101, I'll say, like, at the end of every episode, I'll say, what you have access to, what you can afford, and what you feel comfortable using is what I'll always recommend. I will never tell you, for this, you need high density foam. You don't really. You can get around and use other things. And if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. So that's kind of where I come from for materials. So
yeah, like myself, I like my Warbler and my foam I bought from Michael's. For me, with spray paint, I like using just Canadian Tire's cheap brand.
yeah,
Cheap brand, it sprays on well. It has a nice look to it, and I clear coat everything when I'm done. So it works out perfect. Plus, like go to Canadian Tire gas bar, use your Canadian Tire card, get Canadian Tire money, get your spray paint for free. So
yeah. I use Rust-Oleum, and then there's another brand that Home Depot has, and I just kind of my Home Depot, sometimes it'll fluctuate. So sometimes Rust-Oleum will have everything, and this other brand won't, and then sometimes it'll flip flop. It's pretty easy to get cheap materials. Not that cosplay isn't a cheap hobby. Unfortunately, it's really not. I'm one of the few people that, and I'm very humbled because of this, but I actually make money on Etsy. I made quite a bit of money last year, and I'm super thankful for that. And so I've been able to kind of subsidize the craft and the hobby that way. But it is very expensive, even with some subsidy included.
That's actually like, you're kind of lucky that way, where you're able to reinvest back into your cosplays, because it's not like you're going to be like making all this big Etsy money and rolling up to a Comic-Con in a limo or something like that. Like whatever you make on the Etsy page just goes back into your builds.
Yeah. So the big cosplay for this year so far has been 100% Etsy funded, which is mind-boggling because it's so far I've probably put $1,000 into it. And mostly it's because like I just didn't know. There's some materials I've never used before, and just some really more expensive materials like wood, for example. Wood's really expensive when I was buying it. And so I've been incredibly lucky with that. And so thank you if you've bought a template from me. I really appreciate it. It literally goes directly back into cosplay or energy drinks. I'm a bit of an energy drink junkie. But technically that is Etsy. That is cosplaying because it fuels the brain chemistry.
You have to have some sort of stimulus for it in my
opinion. So
my cosplay preferred beverage of choice is sometimes beer. So
100%.
Beer helps the cosplays go around.
For some weird reason, whenever I'm using like dangerous tools is when I drink beer. Every time I go, this isn't a good idea. The drill.
Well, what I want to know now is when you're not cosplaying, what do you do for fun?
Oh, I have too many hobbies. I play video games. I am a hobby writer. I'm working on a book of short stories at the moment. About halfway done-ish. I do that. And then I draw. I do a little bit of drawing every once in a while. I just finished up like the concept art or the blueprints for this big cosplay that I'm working on. Honestly, and I wonder if I could pull up. Sometimes I'll draw for template making just for practice. So I'll bring something up on my phone here.
Sure.
And so I can show you guys. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. So sometimes I'll get something like that. So this is a knee pad, and I'll break this down into shapes. So I just want to make sure I'm scrolling the right way. Okay. Is it that way? Yeah. Oh, you can't see that at all, can you?
No. Well, I can.
No, you can't. Yeah. Can you see the color? There we go. A little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's a little bit. So I'll actually use a little like dollar store stylus pen, and I'll start breaking images like that down into shapes for templating, which helps me if I want to do, especially if I want to do a cosplay, I'll then have those almost pre-made templates so that I can just go ahead onto the card stock and just start drawing it out. But also, again, it helps with figuring out, okay, I know how foam works. How would I make this? I have a whole thing on Pinterest, of predator masks. That's something I want to do. I want to do a series of predator masks and drawing out the shapes and going, okay, how would I make this? And how would I make that curve? And just drawing for fun. Sometimes I'll find some AI generated art and I'll just draw over it and kind of go, if I was going to make this, how would it work? So that's kind of what I do in my spare time. I also love like watching movies and TV shows and stuff. So I do, unfortunately, I do a fair bit of that. And reading. I'll do like audiobooks. I listen to a bunch of audiobooks while I'm crafting or anything like that. So yeah.
What's your top movie that you've seen so far this year?
Oh, this year, it's kind of a cheap choice, but it's Dune Part 2. How I see the Dune movies is like Lord of the Rings for sci-fi. Like we have a Lord of the Rings for sci-fi. Star Wars was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to experience a generational film, which I think this trilogy is going to be, when I was a little too young for Lord of the Rings and I was too young for Star Wars. Even the prequels, I remember the prequels, but like the original 3 have already kind of come out. That's the generational side, right? But to be able to sit and appreciate and enjoy Dune Part 1 and then Dune Part 2, and I read the book after Dune 1. I watched the David Lynch movie, so I was able to appreciate the new ones just that much more. Yeah. So I would say Dune Part 2, sorry. But I mean, I know there's a bunch of movies coming out that I think are also going to be very, very good. But Dune Part 2 kind of sits in a special place for me, just because I see the importance of it in my mind. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
I'm a very bad geek because I still haven't seen Dune 1 or Dune 2.
Oh, that's fair. That's fine.
That being said, I absolutely loved Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049.
Interesting. Okay.
I love Blade Runner to begin with. And Blade Runner 2049 was spectacular. So I'm thinking
he's a master for sure.
If he made the movies like that, I could probably get into them.
He's got a mastery of scale and size, which makes Dune just that much better. In the same way that, like, if you remember seeing the Star Destroyer for the first time coming down and just getting that immensity of like, this thing is massive. And you don't have much scale to go off of. But Denis done that. He's done that with Arrival. He did that with Blade Runner. He's done that with Dune, which I think really, really works. So, yeah. At the same time, I haven't seen, like, for example, I haven't seen a lot of movies like Civil War. I haven't seen The Office of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I haven't seen a lot of movies that have come out this year so far, which is really unfortunate. So I am missing out on a few things. Or Monkey Man, I haven't seen, which I've heard is drop dead gorgeous and just an amazing film. So I've got a lot of catching up to go. But
I've heard good things about Monkey Man. I just saw a notification that it's hit home premiere this week.
Yeah, that's gonna be a weekend evening for me for sure.
Like for myself, like two of the ones that I really love this year, like number one so far this year is Kong and Godzilla.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
Cosplay Alliance, we went to the advanced screening on that.
That's right. Yeah,
blew me away. I love it.
That's cool.
So good. And
I've got a Mecha Godzilla in the plans for not this year, but maybe next year. Like I said, I want to go big going forward, and so I've got a Mecha Godzilla in the works. So
I'm a Gus from Cosplay Alliance. Him and I got into the discussion real quick when we're walking into the theater. He's a Godzilla fan. I'm like, hey, I'm King Kong. So that is the hill I plan to die on every single time when it comes down to the discussion between Godzilla and King Kong. Is always going to be Kong.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, so we've been here for almost about an hour, and I think we've had a great conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. That's been
all
great.
Right. So you said briefly, but let's just recap one more time.
Yeah.
What shows are you doing this year? What cons are you have on the plan this year?
Okay, so there are two in particular that I know I'm going to. London Comic-Con and Fan Expo are the ones that you will see me at. Awesome Toy Show. I'm planning on it. I've got a cosplay that I'm in the middle of right now. Magique from X-Men, which I actually found out she was on the 97 show, which is cool. Very cool to see one of the newer additions to X-Men. She's like very new to X-Men. in the grand scheme of things. So to see her, I've got like the gender bent version of her. So I'm doing that. Vaughn Comic Con, most likely. Niagara. I really want to go to Niagara. Trying to think of other ones. I think those are the ones that I have my mind and my eyes set on. There might be another one that I'm forgetting that's happening in the fall, in September, but those are the ones that you'll probably see me at.
Well, perfect, because there should be a few of us from Cosplay Alliance at Awesome Toy Show, so I look forward to actually seeing you in person and talking to you.
I thought we met at Fan Expo this last year. I swear because
might have.
I feel like we have. It's one of those, like, I've met so many people since then where they're like, do you remember me? I'm like, I'll be honest, that whole weekend was a blur. So, and I had like my contact lenses in, and like it was bad. I don't know if that's met you or not. But
plus, you're new to this area, so trying to remember everyone's real name or everyone's made up name.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people I go and they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "That's Snowhawk." Just
Snowhawk.
Yeah, I got a tattooed right there. Just call me Snowhawk. It's easier.
Yeah, I'll answer to Freakish. I'll 100% answer to Freakish. So
yeah. Well, even when you and I were texting, and because I was like, I know who you are, and until you said it's Noah, I'm like, okay, now I have a name to a name.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? That's the hard part. So,
all right. So people can find you at London this year, Fan Expo, Awesome Toy Show, possibly Niagara Falls, and give plugs again to the YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So Etsy under, I think, The Freakish Workshop. YouTube, I think, is The Freakish Workshop. Instagram is The Freakish Workshop. I do actually have a Patreon, which I was trying to pull up. I keep forgetting to plug that. I'm trying to bring up, where's my little Patreon thing, but I'm pretty sure it's Freakish Workshop or The Freakish Workshop. It's Freakish Workshop is in the title. So I'm not too hard to find. But that's kind of where you can find me. Trying to think of anyone others. No, that's it. So like I said, the two series that we mentioned and we talked about today. So You Want to Be a Cosplayer, for beginner cosplayers or people looking to get into it, or people looking into getting into foam crafting, or simply just upping their foam crafting game. Sometimes it's good to go back to basics. Those are playlists that you can find on my YouTube channel. So it's all under one thing. Freakish Radio will also be on that as well. That'll be a live show, I'm thinking. You'll see, if you follow me on anything, you'll see me announce it. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Oh, perfect. So everyone, go over to Noah's YouTube, like and subscribe. And while you're doing that, make sure you come back here and like and subscribe to everything here on the Cosplay Alliance and Beneath the Cowl. And hey, I am so happy I got to talk to you tonight.
Same. I was so excited.
Yes. So thank you very much for joining tonight on Beneath the Cowl.
Of course.
And everyone else, tune in next week. We'll have another great show for you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
That's cool.
It's Streamlabs for whatever reason. I think Streamlabs gives it to me, and I always forget I have it.
There we go. You get the fireworks. Woo. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.